Thomas Wilson had lived in his small cabin near the English countryside for 15 years. After losing his wife to illness, he'd moved here, finding peace in the quiet woods and rolling hills. His only friends were the occasional hikers passing by and the wildlife he watched from a distance. That morning started like any other. Thomas was making breakfast when a strange sound caught his ear, a low, sad moan and scratching at his front door. Looking through the window, his heart raced. There, on his porch, stood a large mother bear, clearly upset, with two small cubs huddled beside her. The mother bear's eyes met Thomas's, and in that moment, he saw something he couldn't explain, a look of wisdom, worry, and fear. One of the cubs seemed to be hurt, with blood on its fur. Thomas stepped back from the window, his mind racing. Bears were rare in this part of England. They must have escaped from somewhere or been released illegally. Whatever the case, they were here now, and in trouble. He peeked out again. The injured cub was shivering, barely able to stand. The mother bear kept nudging it gently, trying to make it get up. The second cub pressed against its mother, looking just as scared and cold. Winter was harsh this year. Snow had been falling for days, covering everything in white. The temperature had dropped below freezing last night. No creature should be out in this weather, especially not an injured one. Thomas thought about what to do. He could call the wildlife services, but they might take hours to arrive in this weather. The roads were nearly impassable with snow. By then, the little cub might not survive. He watched as the mother bear looked directly at his window again, as if she knew he was there. As if she was asking for help. Thomas had never seen anything like it in all his years living near nature. "This is madness," he whispered to himself. Yet he couldn't turn away. The cub's soft whimpers reached his ears even through the closed window. Thomas remembered how his wife Jane had always loved animals. She used to feed the birds and squirrels that came to their garden. "Every creature deserves kindness," she would say. He hadn't thought about those words in years. The cabin suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. Since Jane died, Thomas had kept to himself. His daughter Emma had begged him to move closer to her family in London, but he had refused. The pain of losing Jane had been too much. It was easier to be alone. Now, looking at the mother bear trying to protect her cubs, Thomas felt something stir inside him, a feeling he thought had died with his wife years ago. Compassion. Connection. A need to help. He went to his kitchen and found some leftover stew. The bears were clearly hungry and cold. Maybe he could at least leave some food outside for them? As he heated the stew, he kept glancing nervously at the window. When he looked again, his heart nearly stopped. The injured cub had collapsed on the porch. It lay still, its small body almost covered by the falling snow. The mother bear nudged it desperately, making low, worried sounds. Thomas knew then that he had to make a choice. These bears needed more than just food left outside. They needed shelter from the storm. The injured cub needed care. He thought about the risks. A mother bear with cubs was one of the most dangerous animals in the world. Opening his door could mean inviting his own death. And yet, Thomas looked at the photo of Jane on his mantelpiece. Her kind eyes seemed to look back at him, challenging him to remember who he used to be before grief changed him. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of the cabin. Snow was piling up against the door. The storm was getting worse. Soon, even the mother bear might not survive the cold. Thomas took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. He didn't know if what he was about to do was brave or foolish. He only knew that he couldn't watch that family die when he might be able to help. His hand trembled as he slowly turned the lock. Whatever happened next would change everything. The E.N.D. Thomas knew the rules of nature. Never get between a mother bear and her cubs. It was very dangerous. Yet something in the bear's eyes kept him watching. The hurt cub fell down on the porch as the cold grew worse and snow began to cover everything. His hands shook as he reached for his phone. The forest ranger station was far away, and this snowstorm would make it impossible for anyone to help him. He was alone with this choice. "If I open that door," he whispered, "I could die. If I don't." He looked again at the small family. The mother bear stood still, guarding her suffering cub while the healthy one pressed against her for warmth. His late wife's voice seemed to speak in his mind. "Sometimes being brave isn't about saving yourself, Thomas. It's about what you're willing to risk for another living thing." Thomas put down his phone. There was no one to call, no one to help. It was just him and these 3 bears in the middle of a snowstorm. He went to his medicine cabinet and took out the first aid kit that had been sitting there unused for years. Then he went to the kitchen and found some honey, remembering that bears love sweet things. Maybe it would help win their trust. Thomas looked out the window again. The mother bear was now trying to lift her fallen cub, pushing her nose under its body. But the cub was too weak to stand. The second cub was crying, a sound so sad it made Thomas's heart ache. He thought about the 15 years he had spent alone in this cabin. After Jane died, he had shut himself away from everyone, even his own daughter. Emma had tried to reach out to him so many times, but he had pushed her away. The last time they spoke was 6 months ago, when she told him she was expecting a baby. His first grandchild. He hadn't even replied to her message. What had his life become? Living alone in the woods, speaking to no one, helping no one. This wasn't what Jane would have wanted for him. The wind rattled the windows harder. The snow was now halfway up his door. If those bears stayed out there much longer, they would be buried. Thomas made his decision. He put on his thickest gloves and got a large blanket from his bedroom. Then he went back to the front door. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. "This is crazy," he muttered. "Absolutely crazy." But he couldn't turn away. Something about this moment felt important, like a test. Would he choose safety and watch death happen outside his window? Or would he risk everything to help? Thomas thought about Emma. About the grandchild he might never meet if the mother bear attacked him. Was he really going to risk his life for wild animals? Then he saw the cub's eyes flutter closed. It was giving up. "No," Thomas said aloud. "Not on my watch." He unlocked the door, his mind made up. If this went wrong, at least he would die trying to do something good. It had been too long since he had done anything good. The door creaked as he opened it just a little. The cold air rushed in, bringing snowflakes with it. The mother bear's head snapped up, her dark eyes locking onto Thomas's face. For a long moment, neither moved. Man and bear, staring at each other across a threshold that was never meant to be crossed. "I want to help," Thomas said softly, knowing the bear couldn't understand his words but hoping she might sense his meaning. "Please let me help your baby." He opened the door wider, just enough to show the blanket in his hands. Then he slowly bent down and placed it on the floor, half inside, half outside. The mother bear watched his every move. She could kill him with one swipe of her powerful paw. Thomas held his breath, waiting. Then the bear did something that made Thomas doubt his own eyes. She nudged her healthy cub toward the blanket, toward the warmth of the cabin. The little one hesitated, then took a small step forward. The mother bear then gently picked up her injured cub by the scruff of its neck. She looked at Thomas once more, and he saw it clearly this time, not just fear or desperation, but intelligence. Understanding. Trust. She stepped toward the door. The END taking a deep breath, Thomas slowly unlocked and opened his front door. The mother bear didn't attack, but kept her eyes on him. Thomas moved carefully, putting down a blanket just inside the doorway. "I don't know if you understand," he said quietly, "but I want to help your little one." To Thomas's surprise, the mother bear nudged her hurt cub toward the blanket with her nose. Thomas's heart pounded as he backed away slowly. The bear then guided both cubs inside, the injured one limping badly. Thomas kept his distance, watching as the mother positioned herself between him and her cubs. There was fear in her eyes, but also something Thomas could only describe as trust, small and unsure. The mother bear settled her cubs on the blanket. The healthy cub sniffed the air, curious about this strange new place. The injured one lay still, its small chest rising and falling too quickly. Thomas moved very slowly to his kitchen, never turning his back on the bears. He filled a bowl with warm water and took out some clean cloths. Then he found the honey jar and put some in a dish. "I'm just going to clean that wound," he explained, as if the bear could understand him. "I won't hurt your baby." He placed the honey dish on the floor and slid it toward the bears. The mother bear sniffed it, then licked a little. The healthy cub tried some too. Only the injured one showed no interest. This worried Thomas. He needed to see how bad the wound was, but he had to get closer to do that. And getting closer to a mother bear and her cubs went against everything he knew about safety. Outside, the storm grew stronger. Wind howled through the trees, and snow piled higher against the windows. At least they were all inside now, safe from the cold that could kill. Thomas sat on the floor, keeping his distance but close enough that the bears could see him. He wanted them to get used to his presence. "My wife Jane would never believe this," he said softly. "She always said I had a kind heart, even when I didn't think so myself." The mother bear watched him, her eyes never leaving his face. The healthy cub had fallen asleep, but the injured one made small whimpering sounds that broke Thomas's heart. After half an hour of sitting quietly, Thomas decided to try getting closer. He moved forward just a few inches, then stopped. The mother bear growled softly, a warning. "I know," Thomas said. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But your little one needs help." He stayed where he was for another 10 minutes, then tried again. This time, the bear didn't growl. Thomas moved a little closer, then a little more, talking softly the whole time. "Jane used to feed the birds in our garden," he told the bear. "She named all of them, even though they looked the same to me. She could tell them apart, somehow." The mother bear's ears twitched as if she was listening. Thomas was close enough now to see the injured cub clearly. There was a deep cut on its front paw, and the fur around it was matted with blood. The wound looked bad, possibly infected. "I need to clean that," he said. "It will hurt, but it needs to be done." As if understanding, the mother bear gave her injured cub a gentle lick. Then she looked at Thomas and made a soft sound in her throat. Thomas reached for the warm water and cloths. Moving with extreme care, he dampened a cloth and held it out for the mother bear to sniff. She touched it with her nose, then looked at her cub. Taking this as permission, Thomas gently touched the cloth to the cub's wounded paw. The little one cried out, a high-pitched sound of pain. The mother bear growled, and Thomas froze. For a terrible moment, he thought she would attack. But she didn't. She just watched, tense and ready, as Thomas carefully cleaned the wound. "There we go," he whispered. "That's better already." When he finished cleaning, he took out the honey and some herbs from his kitchen. His grandfather had taught him that honey helped cuts heal. He mixed them together and very gently spread the mixture on the cub's paw. The cub licked at the sweet mixture, which made Thomas smile. It was a good sign that the little one had enough energy to do that. "Now we wait," he told the mother bear. "Rest here as long as you need." That night, as the storm raged outside, Thomas slept in his chair, keeping watch over the strange family that had sought his help. For the first time in 15 years, his cabin didn't feel empty. The end over the next few hours, Thomas worked slowly and carefully. He made a mixture of honey and herbs, an old remedy his grandfather had taught him for cleaning wounds. The mother bear watched every move, making soft warning sounds when he came close but never attacking. "Easy now," Thomas said softly as he gently wrapped the cub's cut paw. The little one made sad noises but stayed still. Outside, the storm continued, keeping them all inside together. That night, Thomas slept in a chair, keeping watch. The mother bear and cubs rested near his fireplace. In the soft light, Thomas thought about the line between wild and tame, between fear and trust. He realized that by helping this family, something inside him was also healing, the part that had closed off after his wife's death. When morning came, Thomas woke to find the healthy cub sitting just a few feet away, watching him with curious eyes. The mother bear was still by the fire, the injured cub sleeping against her warm body. "Hello there," Thomas said quietly to the watching cub. Feeling better today, are we? The cub tilted its head, as if trying to understand the strange sounds Thomas was making. Then it made a small huffing noise and went back to its mother. Thomas made himself some tea and toast. He found some berries in his freezer and put them in a bowl for the bears. The mother bear ate hungrily, and the healthy cub joined in. Even the injured cub took a few berries when its mother nudged them toward it. Good sign, Thomas said. You're getting stronger. He checked the injured paw again. The honey mixture had worked well, the swelling was down, and the wound looked cleaner. He applied more of the mixture and wrapped the paw again, this time with a lighter bandage so the cub could move more easily. The storm showed no signs of stopping. Snow now covered Thomas's windows, and the wind still howled outside. They would be trapped together for at least another day. Thomas found an old ball in a cupboard, something he had bought years ago for his daughter's dog when they visited. He rolled it gently toward the healthy cub. At first, the cub backed away. Then, slowly, it batted at the ball with its paw. The mother bear watched carefully but didn't object. Thomas smiled as the cub began to play with the ball, rolling it back and forth. Even the injured cub watched with interest from its spot by the fire. Later that day, Thomas took out an old photo album. He hadn't looked at it in years. Inside were pictures of Jane, of Emma, of happier times. He turned the pages slowly, remembering. That's my wife, he said, showing a picture to the bears as if they could understand. And that's my daughter Emma. She's going to have a baby soon. I'm going to be a grandfather. The mother bear looked at him, her dark eyes seeming to understand his words. Thomas felt tears form in his eyes. I've been a fool, he said. Hiding away up here, shutting everyone out. Even my own daughter. That evening, Thomas made soup for himself. The rich smell filled the cabin. The bears sniffed the air, clearly interested. Thomas smiled and put some soup in a shallow dish, letting it cool before offering it to them. The mother bear sniffed it carefully, then licked a little. Soon, all three bears were eating the soup, making satisfied noises that made Thomas laugh out loud. It was the first time he had laughed in years. As night fell again, Thomas noticed the injured cub trying to stand up. It managed to put weight on its bandaged paw, taking a few shaky steps before sitting down again. Well done, Thomas said, feeling proud. You'll be running around in no time. That night, Thomas didn't sleep in the chair. He made himself comfortable on the floor, closer to the bears. The mother bear watched him but made no objection. After a while, to Thomas's amazement, the healthy cub came over and curled up next to him, its small body warm against his side. Thomas hardly dared breathe. The mother bear made a soft sound, but she didn't call her cub back or show any signs of anger. It was as if she was saying it was okay, that she trusted Thomas with her baby. For the first time in 15 years, Thomas felt needed. He felt a sense of purpose that had been missing for so long. As he watched the sleeping bears, he smiled, remembering how his wife had always said that healing comes in the most unexpected ways. Thomas closed his eyes, feeling more peaceful than he had in years. Tomorrow, he decided, he would try to call Emma. It was time to stop hiding from life. The end 3 days later, the storm ended. The injured cub was standing up properly again, playing with its brother or sister. Thomas opened his door to the bright white world outside. It's time, he said gently. Your little one will be okay now. The mother bear stood up tall, much bigger than Thomas. For a scary moment, he wondered if he had misunderstood everything. Then she lowered her head, gently touching her forehead against his shoulder for just a second, a gesture so unexpected that tears came to Thomas's eyes. She gathered her cubs with soft sounds, leading them toward the door. At the doorway, she turned back once more, looking at Thomas. In that look was a connection that went beyond words, an understanding between two parents who would do anything to protect those they loved. Thomas stood in the doorway, watching as the bears walked slowly through the snow. The injured cub was moving well now, its bandaged paw leaving small prints in the fresh snow. The healthy cub jumped and played, happy to be outside again. The mother bear walked steadily, sometimes looking back to make sure Thomas was still there. At the edge of the woods, the mother bear stopped. She turned to face the cabin one last time. Thomas raised his hand in a small wave. The bear seemed to nod her great head, then turned and led her cubs into the trees. "Goodbye," Thomas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Be safe out there." He stood watching until they disappeared from sight. The forest was quiet now, the storm gone, leaving behind a clean white world that sparkled in the morning sun. Back inside, Thomas looked around his cabin. It seemed different somehow. Where before it had felt like a hiding place, now it felt like a home again. The bears had brought something with them, a reminder of connection, of caring for others. Thomas picked up his phone. It was time. He dialed Emma's number, his heart beating fast. What would he say after so long? Would she even want to talk to him? The phone rang 3 times before she answered. "Dad?" Her voice was surprised, cautious. "Hello, Emma," Thomas said, his voice shaking a little. "I'm sorry it's been so long." There was silence for a moment. Then Emma's voice came again, softer now. "Are you okay, Dad? Is everything all right?" "Yes," Thomas said. "And no. I'm okay, but I haven't been all right for a very long time. Not since your mother died. But I think I'm ready to change that now." He told her about the bears. About the injured cub and the mother who trusted him. About the 3 days they had spent together in the cabin while the storm raged outside. As he spoke, he could hear Emma crying softly. "Dad, that's amazing," she said when he finished. "It sounds like something Mom would have loved." "She would have," Thomas agreed. "She always saw the good in everything, didn't she? Even in me." "Even in you," Emma echoed. "Dad, we're having a girl. The baby. She's due in 2 months." Thomas felt his heart swell. "Emma, that's wonderful news. I'd like to be there, if that's okay with you. When she's born. And after. I'd like to be a grandfather she knows." "I'd like that too, Dad," Emma said. "We miss you. Peter and I have been talking about moving somewhere with more space, for the baby. Somewhere not too far from you, maybe." Thomas thought about his big, empty cabin. About rooms that hadn't been used in years. About the sound of a child's laughter filling the quiet spaces. "Or you could come here," he said suddenly. "There's plenty of room. You and Peter and the baby. This place is too big for just me." He could hear Emma's surprise in her silence. Then she laughed, a sound so like her mother's that it made his heart ache with joy. "Dad, are you sure? That's a big change." "I'm sure," Thomas said firmly. "It's time for big changes." After they hung up, Thomas walked through his cabin, opening curtains, letting light into corners that had been dark for too long. He went to his bedroom and took Jane's photo from the bedside table. "You were right all along," he told her, smiling face. "Every creature does deserve kindness. Including me. Including our daughter. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember." Outside, fresh snow began to fall again, soft and gentle this time. Thomas looked out at the woods where the bears had disappeared. He hoped they were safe, that the injured cub would grow strong and healthy. Sometimes, Thomas thought, the greatest healing comes not from hiding away from the world, but from finding the courage to help others when they need it most. And in doing so, we often find that we are the ones being saved. The end.